Hi, students. You're about to start your research paper, and I know that writing a research paper can feel overwhelming. And if we're honest, we've all written research papers that didn't mean much to us and seemed too easy. You may have written a paper in which the topic was assigned to you, or worse, you may have written a paper where your instructor provides you with the research and the quotes they want you to use. Then everyone in the class is basically writing the same paper. In this class, you, of course, got to choose your own topic, but in many ways, this can feel more challenging. Maybe you're overwhelmed with the amount of information you need to get through in order to better understand your topic. Maybe you feel pressure to understand your topic very, very well so you won't appear misinformed. Perhaps you've never really researched a topic properly before, and the whole process just seems impossible. And you may feel that you should already know how to do this as a college student. So just take a deep breath and know that you're about to learn a very easy, straightforward approach to reading your research and finding what is most important for your specific topic. First, let's start off with a research question. What is the question you are asking about your topic? What is it that you want to find out? You may have thought that you need a clear thesis right now that you're going to argue. It's very unlikely that you have a clear idea about how you feel on an issue, and that's actually good. In fact, I've had students that feel so strongly about their topic, and after they've read their research, they discover new information and they decide to argue the opposite point. That's why I suggest to start off asking a question. Be curious about your topic and open to change. So, if your topic is about ADD and you're thinking that maybe prescription medications are more harmful to children with ADD, don't necessarily settle on one side of the issue yet, even if you feel strongly about it. Instead, pose your thought in the form of a question. Do ADD medications cause harmful side effects on children that outweigh the positive effects? Once you have your research question, you're able to read more purposefully, looking for information that specifically leads you to answers to your question. So that brings me to some good news. You don't have to read your sources from cover to cover. Let me be clear about this. For example, if you have a book, no sensible teacher is expecting you to read the entire book source from cover to cover. Instead, you read the introduction and the table of contents. Next, using the table of contents, you find the specific information from the book that answers your question. Be careful with this. Read the chapter titles carefully. Investigate the chapters to see if it contains anything that may be helpful. A lot of students come to me and say, I found no books on my topic. But the truth is, they simply don't give their books enough time. If you're rushing, you'll be tempted to give up on your book. Journal articles and other short pieces do require a complete and thorough read, though. Journal articles, like we've mentioned, can be a bit complex, so they especially need careful attention and time. When you're doing research, you have to take notes as you read. It's just impossible to remember main points and arguments and page numbers and authors' names from the sources that you have received. Also, taking notes helps you understand the information more fully, so you can write about the issue with some clarity. I've provided you with a template to use as you take notes. I call these content notes because they will make up the content or the substance of your research paper. I want you to understand something. If you take quality notes while you research, that's half the work of a research paper. But if you don't take good notes, your paper will seem very difficult and confusing to put together in an essay. Let's take a look at the content notes, and this process will be more clear. You can find a copy of this template on our course calendar on the same day as this video. Here we are on the content notes template. Please take a moment to pause this video and review the instructions carefully. Please note that there is a sample to this assignment located right here in the instructions. Like the instructions mentioned, each one of these tables will represent each source you will use. You may have an extra table on here. That's fine, just ignore it. On each table, you will type in the author and title of the work. So if this table were all about the journal article I chose, that will look like this. As you can see, I've inserted all of the author's names and the title of the journal article right here in this box. Then you will fill out the table with 5 pieces of evidence to help you answer your research question. Again, just type in the template. So your first piece of evidence may look like this. Remember, a quote is taken exactly from the source word for word. Use quotation marks and make sure to include the page number where this information was taken from. Also include the author's last name right in the citation. A citation is this information here, and it is located in parentheses at the end of the sentence, before the period. This is what a quote will look like when you type it into the table. We are using MLA format to cite our sources, and so we will follow those guidelines throughout this course in all of our writing. The next column requires you to paraphrase the quote that you just typed. When you paraphrase, you take the quote and recommunicate that in your own words. Don't commit the sin of patch writing. This is when you simply replace certain words in the quote with your own. Let's look at this example of patch writing. Here's an example of what not to do when you paraphrase. The words that are in blue have been changed from the original quote just enough so that the student makes this look like it was his own words. But the words in red are taken exactly from the quote. When you use someone else's words or ideas, you need to give them the proper attribution by using quotation marks and citations. This is not a paraphrase. This is patch writing, because just like a patchwork quilt, the student is patching together some of his synonyms and lots of the original words to try to make a paraphrase. Let's take a look at a proper paraphrase. Here we have a very concise but effective paraphrase that gets straight to the point. So the student just focused on the main idea and was able to use some synonyms. When you're writing a paraphrase, try to use a thesaurus, but also try to speak out your paraphrase before typing it down. That may help you to make sure that you understand the meaning of the quote before you actually put words on paper. I want you to notice that you also have to include a citation for paraphrase. And that's something that a lot of comm students do not know. Yes, even when you paraphrase, you need to have a citation, just like a quotation, that includes the author's last name and the page number of where you found that information. Lastly, you will type out a comment on the quote you selected. Like the instructions say, think about why you chose this quote and how it's helping you answer your research question. Why is this quote important to you discovering new ideas and insights on your topic? Look at this example for guidance. As you can see in the comment section, it's your turn to respond to the quote, just like you were practicing early in the semester with the summary response assignments. You're free to use I, you're free to think things through on paper. I want you to start making connections between the quote that you're choosing and how it's answering your research question. You may even want to include, like this student sample shows, any new insights that you're getting on your topic. Here are a couple of things to keep in mind. Page numbers are very important when you're writing a research paper because you need to cite those page numbers when you quote or paraphrase. But not all sources have page numbers. But journal articles from the library databases do include page numbers. So make sure that you download a PDF copy of the journal article that you choose. And when you scroll through the article, you will notice the page numbers, most likely on the bottom corners of the pages. You can download a copy of the article and save it to your hard drive. Also, you will notice in the sample I provide that the student does not always include the author's last name in the citation. The reason for that is simple. If you include the author's last name in the paraphrase or the quote when you introduce it, you do not have to include it in the citation. But if you leave the last name out, you have to put it in the citation. Also, never ever refer to an author simply by their first name. Always use the last name as a reference. The instructions include a link to a list of words you can use instead of the word said or says. Avoid using said or says at any time in your essay. I want you to think of more specific words that you can use to communicate that the author is claiming or stating something. Notice how the student here avoids those words and instead uses words like highlights, claims, proves, to name a few. Some of your sources may be too short from which to pick out 5 pieces of evidence. Notice how the student handles this in the sample. Here, the student is using a short newspaper article. So in her quote section, she simply types entire article. This is only allowed if the source is very short and it is only retelling one event, for example, as in a news report. If this is something you do, you are still required to paraphrase and comment on that one piece of evidence. Notice how the student has 2 comments for the entire article. Again, this is only in the case that your source is too short to draw out multiple quotes as evidence. Don't be afraid or worried if your content notes have evidence from multiple perspectives. Your sources may disagree with one another, and actually, that's great. Include it in the table. When you're finished, you will look at the evidence and come up with your conclusion based on the research. Besides, it's always a good idea to include the opposite view of your argument in a research paper, but we will get to that in another lecture. So for now, make sure your tables have a nice mix of views and perspectives. Also, you may be wondering how you can use this template. You can download a copy of this template, and actually, you can download a copy of any Google Doc I share with you this semester. Just go to File, Download As, and then you can save it either as a Microsoft Word document, PDF, etc. Or if you're familiar with Google Docs, you can go to File, make a copy, and then save it right onto your Google Drive. And then you can rename it and start using it. When I assign content notes, many of my students think it's a waste of time and unnecessary. But when they're finished, they realize that they are pretty much writing their paper as they are reading their research. I hope you realize that when you are done with this assignment, you can copy and paste much of the information from these assignment tables onto your first draft. And with much revision, you have most of your paper already written. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.